It's time now for the big question in which we tackle a major news story of the day. A man has come in for heavy criticism on social media for making a comment about his partner's weight on a hit reality TV show. It happened on a programme called Married at First Sight, where strangers tie the knot moments after meeting one another. Just beforehand, he said, "I do." He suggested that he would normally go for somebody more petite. He said to her, "Normally, I would choose to marry someone more petite." And it's not the only time the issue has been thrown up on the programme. Take a look at this.
She was talking about, oh, she's going to go to the gym with Matt. I said, well, don't be doing the same exercises as them. I'd never personally want a girl that's got huge, like, horse legs. That's what I said. Oh. And it's the same as if my girlfriend put on a huge amount of weight. If it wasn't for medical reasons or something like that, I wouldn't want to be with her either.
No. I mean, it's a hell of a chat-up line, isn't it? You know, I normally date someone more petite than you. Bearing in mind that this couple are now married and he'd already voiced his concerns about his partner's appearance, will it have an effect on their relationship going forward? Is it ever acceptable to critique your partner's weight? Is it acceptable to dump them if they become a porker? Well, let's debate this now with Married at First Sight coach Mel Shilling. Great to see you. Mel, welcome to the programme.
Hello, Mark. Thanks for having me.
That was a pretty spicy moment for the show. Was the lady involved offended?
Yes, she was. She was. And who wouldn't be? I mean, it's insulting. It's essentially it's a social aggression. And this whole idea of fat shaming, you know, more broadly, is something that has become a bit of a national pastime. I mean, I've been listening to your show. I've been hearing all of these points about, you know, the BMI going up year on year, and obesity is a problem. And I get it. It absolutely is. It's an epidemic. And I see that in children as well. But there's a misconception that fat shaming is going to change behaviour. There's been some research done on people who actually partake in this this sport called fat shaming, and they believe that by saying something hurtful or shameful to a person who's overweight, it's going to motivate them to go to the gym or to start eating lean. But the opposite is actually true. And what the research shows is that it does some real psychological damage. It increases things like anxiety, depression, and definitely plummeting self-esteem. And all of these things actually reduce motivation. So it actually makes it worse.
So how do we get the message across? Because we don't want to normalise obesity, do we? Just as we didn't normalise lung cancer for smokers.
Right. And that's not the answer either, of course. You know, we want to be about healthy people on the physical level, but of course we want strong well-being and psychological health as well. So when we come back to that intimate relationship and the idea of, you know, is it helpful, if you like, to shame your partner if they're gaining weight? Well, no, it's not. And what would be a better approach would be to actually build them up. So, you know, a lot of the research tells us that people who engage in unhealthy eating or have an unhealthy relationship with food, have unhelpful thinking about food, there's a strong link between this and self-esteem. So, you know, in those intimate relationships, if we can be doing everything we can to build the esteem of our partner, to show empathy for how they're feeling, to lift them up, to give them, you know, other things to focus on, then we're more likely to give them the psychological platform they need to engage in more healthy eating.
Indeed. Blimey, did you see those pictures of fish and chips there? They looked absolutely delicious, didn't they? Sebastian, back to me. Come on, this is Telly Love. There you go. Look, the thing is, we've got to reflect on this, haven't we? Because we obviously want people not to be abused. Fat shaming is completely unacceptable. But in terms of the relationship, is there not an unspoken compact, a deal between a couple when they get married that you're going to kind of do basic upkeep? And therefore, does one partner have grounds to get out of that relationship if the other partner does gain massive amounts of weight?
Have you ever met a woman who's had a baby?
Two. When I say two, I've met one that's had two. Absolutely.
Bodies change. People change. Men gain weight too. You know, one of the joys of being in a long-term relationship is you get to go through the ebbs and flows of life with that person. And often that means that bodies change, hairlines change, you know. This is part of accepting a partner for who they are and loving them anyway.
Mel, may I ask you a personal question?
Go ahead.
Are you married or are you in a long-term relationship?
I'm married, yeah.
Okay, and if your partner, I don't know, gained about 5 stone, you know, they're just on the Deliveroo the whole time, they get through a 6-pack of beer every night, how would you tackle that? And do you think you would wind up in the divorce courts?
No, and look, the two of us, we've been together for nearly 12 years, and we've both been through, you know, the ups and downs of our weights. I mean, I've had a child and, you know, been through IVF, and so all of that has changed my body shape. He's gone through stages where he developed a gorgeous little beer belly. You know, the poor thing's Northern Irish, but he was living in Australia for a while, so, you know, he made like the natives. And I absolutely loved that. You know, that was a phase of life that we were in together, and, you know, we talked about it. It certainly wasn't something that was brushed under the covers. It was, you know, we used humour and had a joke about it. And then, you know, we started motivating each other, you know, to get into the gym and to eat healthily, you know. So it was, I think, you know, it was very much about, okay, what can we do about this problem? Let's work together toward a solution, as opposed to, you know, you got a bit of a paunch and you're no longer sexy.
Well, I think that's very wise. I've got to say that when my wife was pregnant, I had a sympathy belly as well, because that's how caring and empathetic I am, Mel. Let's bring in my brilliant panellist, if I may, Mel, Dr. Lisa McKenzie, who's an ethnographer and an academic. Lisa, what do you think about this? Is there an unspoken deal when you get married that you're going to keep yourself in ship shape?
I think there is. I do actually think there is. I think if you're in any sort of relationship, you want each other, you know, you want to be attractive to each other. So I think most people in relationships, they're fully aware of, you know, that sort of unspoken deal. But what worries me with this is conflating health with attractiveness. And I think that's what we're doing here. We're mixing the two up. Being healthy is not the same as what is fashionable or attractive today. You know, things change. Women, like you said, women's bodies change. And I think what really worries me about this, it's always the onus is on the woman. You know, the woman it's about her body shape, what is happening to her. And I think from the clip that you showed from Married at First Sight, it was, again, another man saying, you know, I expect a woman to be like this or look like this. And therefore, that's about attractiveness and fashion. It's not about being healthy, is it?
I think it's a really important distinction, and you could be stick thin and very unhealthy if you don't get proper nutrition, as we mentioned with those 80s and 90s models, Lisa.
Yeah.
Let's bring the boys in, shall we? Let's give the lads a right to reply. SAS hero Adrian Hayes and radio and TV legend David Hamilton. So, David, what do you think? You've been married to Mrs. Hamilton for a long, long time. I've got no doubt she's a stunning lady. But if she wasn't, would she be out on her ear?
I think if you dumped your lover for being overweight and you told him or her that, it would be very cruel. So I think, you know, just a few hints like hiding the chocolates or dumping the donuts behind the settee or something like that. Or you could tell them a little joke, a pointed joke. You could say, years ago I had a girlfriend who was so fat, she hung her knickers on the line and a family of gypsies moved in. And that would sort of be a kind of hint to say, is he trying to tell me something?
Well, exactly. And listen, I tell you something, we don't mind a bit of old school humour, especially if it gets the message across. Adrian, what do you think about this? I mean, some blokes let themselves go. Maybe women are within their rights to dump them.
Yeah, look, I don't think any of us three are going to say you've got the right to dump your partner if they put on weight. But one of the tools, when I bring expedition teams together or corporate teams or even relationship teams, one of the tools I use is getting your agreements out, you know, putting your cards on the table. And this goes everything from your objectives for how you're going to deal with difficulty to your politics, your religion, whatever these things are. And the most important thing that I bring out is, do we have the agreement to say whatever we want to each other without the other person taking it personally. And that is one of the most fundamental things you can get. And it means that if you don't have that agreement, it means things fester. It keeps in. People take it back. They hold it in themselves. When you've got that agreement with someone, you can say anything. So you can say to your partner, look, sweetie, I think you're putting on a little bit of weight or something. Or to a teammate saying, I think you're being a little bit lackadaisical with some of your safety processes, whatever. But you're doing it for the objective. And I think the other thing is really, if you're aligned with your values, so with a couple, if you're aligned with the values of health and nutrition and all other things, if you're on that same page, you'll grow together. As Mel said, you'll grow together. You'll ups and downs, you'll have distances and things, but you've got that fundamental thing, which I think is the real core of everything, is are we aligned with our values?
The other thing you could do is, Mark, you could just embrace the curves. You know,
exactly right.
Go for it. Go for a larger model.
Well, definitely. I've got to say, my wife has done so well because she started to put on some weight and then she took exercise. She changed her diet, and I put a padlock on the fridge, and it's been a game changer. Let me tell you. She's at home now, staring at the padlock, probably with a blowtorch. Mel, before you go, could you tell me about the show, because it's called Married at First Sight? So what's the kind of one-line elevator pitch of what this show actually is?
It's literally what it says on the tin. So we work behind the scenes to match people up, and they meet at the altar on their wedding day. They have a wedding, they have a honeymoon, and then there's, depending on which country you're in, I do it in Australia and in the UK, we have 8 or 10 other couples who all move into an apartment block together, and we bring them together weekly to have very fancy dinner parties with maybe a drink or two. They come and see us. There's 3 of us once a week for a commitment ceremony, and they decide whether or not they want to stay or leave. Challenges every week. It's a fast-tracked relationship.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, many people would think that's no basis for a marriage. You meet at the altar. But then again, if we think of arranged marriages in certain cultures and religions, many of those are very successful.
They are. That's right. And some of ours are too.
What are the pitfalls? Where can it go wrong?
Marrying at first sight.
Yeah.
Well, of course, it's a stranger. So as experts, we can do everything we can to predict compatibility. You know, as you were saying, about values, about personality style, about aligning goals, about relationships and life. But at the end of the day, it's about chemistry, and that is something we cannot predict. So it very much becomes up to the couple and the spark between them.
Well, look, I've got to say, it's making headlines. It's a fascinating format, and I'm definitely going to give it a go. It's called Married at First Sight, and the UK and the Australian version stars my lovely guest. So thank you so much for joining us, Mel Shilling. Let's get your views on this now. Earlier, before we went on air, we put it out on Twitter. The following question: is it wrong to dump your partner if they become overweight? Well, the results are in. And by the way, a big response, almost 4,000 votes in just an hour. 57.4% say it is wrong to dump your partner. 42.6% say it's okay. Wonder whether my wife is in that latter group.